Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another edition of the Golden Age. This is a series of Warhammer Fantasy battle reports, and this is battle report number 63. It is a 2,000 point battle that is fought between Brother Grimm as well as myself. Brother Grimm is bringing the Immortulz and Orcs and Goblins army, while I'm playing the Legion of the Hellmouth and Ogre Kingdom's army. Sword throwing is down at 2,000 points on a typical battle line scenario. We're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what you're bringing for each of the armies, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Crom, I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad, why we fought, or why we died. No. All that matters is that two stood against many. That's what's important. Power pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then the hell with you.
Alright ladies and gentlemen, the scenario rules for this one is Battle Line. This one has standard deployment as well as standard victory conditions as always. It's our most favorite type of scenario to play, and that's the one that we usually host the most on our Golden Age battle reports. So with that being over with, let's go and talk about the battle plan real fast. Alright, so here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. We're playing on a 4x6 table. I'm deployed on the near side of the table, while my friend Brother Grimm is deployed on the far side of the table. So the battle tactic of this one is actually pretty straightforward. We're both playing very close combated oriented armies. Both of us require us to move as quickly as we can to engage the enemy as quickly as we can on that one as well. So because of that, the tactic is pretty simple. Now the only thing I'm really worried about are those two huge horde units of orcs that my friend Brother Grimm has brought. On the left hand side, that is the Immortulz. That is a huge unit of 38 black orcs that have the Immortulz upgrade, and Gregor Ironhide is located in that unit as well. So I'm really deathly afraid of that unit because they can bring the pain. What my plan is to hopefully engage them with my Stankum's Legion, charge in the front. Hopefully I can give them some impact hits on that one, and then hopefully whittle them down a little bit with some fire from the lead belchers from my powder gangers, so that way when I do engage with them, I'll be able to weaken them up. At the same time, my plan is to also engage the War Boys, which is that huge unit of 40 orc biggins. My plan is to tag them with the Red Rovers and hopefully get them in a pincer attack with my Mournfang Cav. Now I do have to worry about those Night Goblins on the far right hand flank because those guys have fanatics, but I have plenty of wounds on my Mournfang Cav, so my plan is to charge them, destroy that unit, flank and hit the War Boys on the right hand side, and then have the Red Rovers take on the orcs in the front. And that's pretty much what I'm kind of going with for my battle plan on this one. So with the battle plan over with, let's go and talk about deployment real fast. Okay, so let's go and talk about the Ogre Kingdoms real quick. On the left-hand side, these are the Powder Gangers. They're 4 lead belchers with no upgrades. They're my flanking unit. You guys know them, and I love them. And in the center of my army are my two main infantry forces. On the left-hand side, that is the Stankum's Legion. It is my Gutstar unit. It is a column formation of 9 Iron Guts with full command. They have heavy weapons as well as, great weapons as well as heavy armor. They also have the Dragonbite banner and full command. And leading the course are my 3 characters. On the left-hand side, that is Burps O' Blood, my level 2 Fire Belly with the Lure of Fire. He's got Fireball as well as Fulminating Flame Cage for his spells. In the center is my General Taijin Khan, the Right Fist of Hell. He is a Slaughter Master who's a level 4 Lore of the Great Maw. He has Bull Gulger, Toothcracker, Brain Gobbler, as well as Troll Guts on his spells. And he's also got the Fencer's Blade, Glittering Scales, as well as the Greedy Fist. And then right next to him on the right hand side, that is Korgold, the Giant Breaker. That is my Bruiser Battle Standard Bearer. He has the Ruin Maw. He's also packing great weapons. He also has the Giant Breaker big name as well. And then right there on the right hand side, that is the Red Rovers. That is a unit of 6 Ogre Bulls with full command. They have Iron Fists as well as hand weapons. And lastly, on the far right hand flank, these are my Beastclaw Raiders, a unit of 4 Mournfang Cavalry with full command. They have heavy armor, Iron Fists as well as hand weapons. And that pretty much makes up my deployment on this side of the table. Alright, so starting off Brother Grimm's left-hand flank, that is the Immortulz. That is a huge unit of 38 black orcs. They're kitted out with heavy armor, shields. They also got a full array of weapons. They also have full command, and I believe they also have the banner of swiftness on that unit as well, so they get +1 to their movement. Now, leading that unit, we got 2 black orc characters. The first one is Grimgore Ironhide, the Incarnate of Beasts. This is the special character from the End Time special rules, so he's a buffed up version of that special character. He's also got the Locus of Gur, which gives everything within 12 inches from the Orcs and Goblins and Ogre Kingdoms, which are on the friendly side, +1 strength and +1 toughness, so I do have to worry about that buff spell. And he's got his general leading that unit there. And then these black orcs also have the Immortulz upgrade as a fact of that. They get +1 weapon skill as well as hatred. The second character is Blorgut Face Smasher. That is an orc big boss. He's got a battle standard bearer upgrade as well. He's got heavy armor, shield, as well as a huge array of weapons. And for his magical item, he's carrying the Rampager standard. So this unit can reroll filled charges, and they also got +1 movement. So these guys are going to be moving pretty quick. And following the right-hand side, we have another huge unit of orcs. Those are the War Boys. That is a unit of 39 orc boys, which would be have big guns upgrades. They also have hand weapons and shields. They also have the standard of discipline, so they get +1 to leadership. And leading them is a level 3 orc shaman. That is Ruga the Stunty Flea. He's a level 3 Lord of the Bigwa. His spells are Fists of Gork, Irigo, as well as Foot of Gork. And he also has, I believe, the Crown of Command and the Talisman of Endurance is what he has on him. So he has a 5 ward save on him. And then finally on the right hand side we have them Backstabbers, which is 20 goblins with Night Goblins rather, with short bows, and they also have 3 fanatics. And they also have a standard bearer and a musician, I believe. And that pretty much makes a deployment for Brother Grimm. So with deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and Brother Grimm and I roll off to see who goes first. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 1, and the Orcs and Goblins get to go first. So this photo is taken after the movement phase, and as you can see in this photo, Brother Grimm just marches up forward. He marches up the Immortulz, the War Boys, as well as them Backstabbers. He passes all of his animosity tests, so doesn't worry about anybody failing those, and he's Orcs and Goblins, so there's no fancy maneuvering here, just moving across the battlefield as quickly as he can. So here's some close-up shots of during the movement phase. Right there you got the Immortulz getting ready to move down the center of the battlefield between the 2 forests, using the forest on his left-hand side to protect his left-hand flank. And here's a close-up of the War Boys moving up as forward as well. As you can see, they're actually just a little bit behind the Immortulz. That's because the Immortulz have movement 5, while the War Boys actually have movement 4 on that one. And finally, here's a close-up of them Backstabbers moving along the right-hand flank with their fanatics and trying to be as imposing as they possibly can. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. Magic phase is pretty much uneventful for the Orcs and Goblins. They do cast Fists of Gorkoff onto his Shaman Ruga the Stunty Flare. He does that so that way his Shaman has +3 attacks, +3 strength, as well as an additional up for his ward save. However, I think he cast that spell in order to pull out some of my Dispel dice, but I didn't do that because the real reason why I kept my power dice in reserve is because he's going to get the Foot of Gork spell off. And I remember that spell going off way back when I was playing the Legion of Chaos with my Nurgle army, the Garden of Nurgle. So because of that, I dispelled Foot of Gork thankfully, so I didn't have to worry about that spell. So, and plus I'm not engaging these guys in close combat anytime soon, so there's no reason why to let that spell be dispelled. So with the magic phase over, we skip shooting because all of his shooting elements march. There is no close combat, so we go to the bottom of turn number 1 for the Ogre Kingdoms. Alright, so here's the bottom of turn number 1 for the Ogre Kingdoms. As you can see in this photo, I really don't move all that much. The reason why is because I'm going to try to play defensively a little bit. My plan is to whittle down his Black Orcs before I engage them, so the only unit I move forward are the Powder Gangers. I just move up their normal 6 inches, that way they're within range to open up with their lead belcher guns. Other than that though, I'm not too eager to charge across the battlefield. There's still quite a bit of distance between his battle line versus mine, so there's no real reason for me to charge against that. At the same time, I'm also kind of hesitant to send my Mornfang cavalry in yet because I don't want to pop the fanatics and have them get destroyed by that, so I'm going to try to hold off on that as long as I possibly can, being a little bit more defensive on this one. So that pretty much makes up the movement phase for the Ogre Kingdoms. So here's a close-up of the movement phase for the Powder Gangers because they're the only members of my army that moved forward, and they're just moving up their normal 6 inches so that way they can cut loose with their lead belcher guns against the Immortulz. And that pretty much makes up the movement phase on this one. So with movement phase over with, let's go on directly to the magic phase. So during the magic phase, I do try to cast the level 2 version of Fireball with Burps of Blood, but unfortunately that spell was dispelled by my opponent with his Shaman. However, I was able to get off Fulminating Flame Cage off onto that unit of Orcs. So because of that, the War Boys now have that. So if they move at all, they suffer, each model suffers a Strength 4 hit. So depending how my opponent is feeling about that, it could do a lot or not very much because these guys are all Toughness 4 as standard. So, you know, man could hope, you know what I'm saying? I do, however, manage to kill 3 orcs from that, though, from the initial blast from the flame cage, so that part's kind of nice, but the rest of my spells from the Great Mob were pretty much dispelled by Ruginous Stunty Flare, so not much really happened there. And that pretty much makes it the magic phase on this one. So with magic phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. And during the shooting phase, the powder gangers do manage to plink off 4 members of the Immortulz, which is actually kind of nice, because I wasn't expecting much from them because the Immortulz are so heavily armored and there's so many of them, but 4 is less I got to worry about, so that part is kind of cool as well. So with the shooting phase over with, we skip the combat phase, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Orcs and Goblins. However, before we can do that, though, the Orcs and Goblins do have to take an animosity test. The War Boys passed theirs, however, the Night Goblins did not. They rolled up a squabble result from their animosity results. So what that ends up happening is that they have to declare a charge against the nearest enemy if they're able to. So the my Mournfang Cav were the closest to them. When they rolled their dice, I think they rolled like a 5 with a 3 and a 2. So because of that, they only stumble forward 3 inches. And that's pretty much all they can do, which is kind of nice because that means they also can't shoot during the next turn as well. So with the animosity phase over with, let's go directly to the movement phase. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Orcs and Goblins, and what ended up happening is that Brother Grimm decides to declare some charges. The first thing he decides to do is declare a charge with his Immortulz against my, against Stenkum's Legion. Unfortunately for him, though, he failed that charge. He only stumbled forward, I think, 2 inches. I think he rolled a 3 on that one, so not much really happened from there as well. He also tried to declare a charge with the War Boys as well. Now, when he declared his charge, however, he rolled a 5, I think, yeah, a 5 or a 6. So because he didn't go very far either. I think he went 4, no, he rolled a 6 is what it was. So he only goes forward, I think, about 3 inches. Yeah, that's what he ended up doing. So because of that, he didn't get very far at all. But because the fulminating flame cage is on him, all of his members of his unit take strength 4 hits, unfortunately for him. However, it ended up being really good because you can see in that photo, that huge unit of orcs just got basically chopped down in half. But it was all said and done, 22 orcs died from the fulminating flame cage spell that was put on him. It was absolutely ridiculous. I was rolling 4s and 6s like it was going out of style on that one. And my opponent, of course, he had to roll perfect 6s for his armor saves, and he wasn't doing it. So 22 orcs just get killed. Luckily for Brother Grimm, though, the War Boys do not panic. They do stand their ground. They don't flee. But at the same time, though, that's one less unit I really got to worry about now because I can easily take on 15 orcs with my Red Rovers. So now that unit is not so dangerous anymore as well. So that part was pretty epic. So here's a close-up of the move phase where you can see right here, you can see the top of the screen where you're looking at the Immortulz. And as you can see there, they kind of failed their charge. So they're stuck right there next to the forests. And here's a close-up of the War Boys because the flame cage is awesome. I had no idea that's how good that spell would actually work out for this one. So you can see there's only 15 orcs left from the War Boys, and that's a unit that I could easily take on. So that part's pretty awesome. And finally, here's a close-up of them backstabbers who are not really going anywhere because they end up squabbling the last turn. So with the movement phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. So during the magic phase, my opponent was able to get off Vistigork on a shaman again, so that shaman has 3 up strength attacks as well as an additional 1 up to his ward save. However, he does try to cast the tries to cast Here We Go, but when he rolled it, he rolled 2 6s and a 3. So because of that, he does miscast. In this case, he miscasts 5.
Klaatu! Marada!
So as you can see in this photo, in the miscast 5, he does have a small detonation that takes place. Pretty much the small blast template is centered on top of the shaman. Everybody within that blast template also gets hit as well with a strength 10 hit, including the shaman. So things are not looking very good for the War Boys at this point. By the time the dust cleared, he did suffer a wound on his shaman, and plus he lost 4 more War Boys as well. He did have to take another panic check, of course, which he successfully passed. So because of that, the War Boys are still kind of standing their ground. So now I'm only facing against 11 orcs, and that's going to be too easy for my Red Rovers for the next turn. Now we skip the shooting phase because there is no shooting and there is no close combat either, so that takes us directly to the bottom of turn number 2 for the Legion of the Hellmouth. Alright, so that takes directly to the bottom of turn number 2 for the Ogre Kingdoms, and at this point I decided to declare all my charges and I just go charging forward across the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, I successfully charged forward with my Powder Gangers directly to the left-hand side of the Immortulz. At the same time, I do successfully charge with Stenkum's Legion, rolling a 10 for my charge roll, so because of that, they do get D3 impact hits when they do their Ogre charge directly into the Immortulz, which is freaking awesome. At the same time, I decided to charge in my Beastclaw Raiders as well as the Red Rovers as well. The Red Rovers charge directly into the front of the War Boys. They rolled a 9 for their charge distance, so they don't get any bonuses. And I also charged the Mournfang Cav on the right-hand side. Now, unfortunately, I did suffer like a godly amount of wounds for doing that. I think I suffered 8 wounds in total, which killed one of my Mournfang Cav and put 2 more floating wounds on another one. I did pass my panic check, so I do commit fully with the charge, and I go directly into the Night Goblins. And I'm looking forward to destroying those guys and just to get rid of those Night Goblins once and for all. So here's a close-up of the Powder Gangers as well as Stenkum's Legion charging directly into the Immortulz and getting ready to chop those guys down. I'm pretty excited to see how this combat goes. The only thing I'm worried about is fighting against Grimgor Ironhide, because knowing Brother Grim, he will declare a challenge to that character, and so my general will have to fight against him, and we'll see exactly how that goes. But that's also, of course, after I'm done with my D3 impact hits from all my Ogres that are charging directly into the Immortulz. And here's a close-up of the Red Rovers charging directly into the War Boys, and I'm pretty confident that my Ogres can take on these Orcs with no problem. And finally, here's a close-up of my Mournfang Cavalry from the Beastclaw Raiders charging directly into the Night Goblins. I do lose one of my Mournfang Cav as well as suffer 2 wounds, but, you know, I'm fighting against Night Goblins, so it's well worth the risk at this point. So I just kind of fully commit to that point. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. Alright, so that takes us directly in the magic phase on this one, and I managed to get off the boosted version of Troll Guts. Because of that, everything within 12 inches gets a 5-up regen save, which means that my Lead Belchers, my Iron Guts, as well as my Bulls all receive 5-up regen, which is pretty awesome at that point. Now the rest of the spells I tried to cast off, I wasn't able to do so because Brother Grim managed to dispel them all, but I was able to get that boosted version off, which is pretty awesome, all things considering. So with the magic phase over with, we skip shooting and we go directly to the combat phase. So starting off with the combat phase between the Mournfang Cav against the Night Goblins. By the time it's all said and done, the Night Goblins did manage to put 1 wound onto one of my Mournfang Cavalry, so now they're at 3, about halfway dead. However, I managed to kill 14 Night Goblins when it's all said and done, so needless to say, I win by a landslide in that combat. So the Night Goblins are forced to flee, they fail their panic test, and they do run away. However, I do not engage against them. I do manage to pass my leadership test to stand their ground so that way they don't pursue, and because I do a quick combat reform real quick and face over to the left hand side so that way I can charge to the ranks of the War Boys on the right hand flank or into the Immortulz if I'm really lucky at that point. As you can see, those Night Goblins, man, they flew back 11 inches trying to get away from my Mournfang Cav, so that unit is combat ineffective as far as I'm concerned, so now I'm going to concentrate on the Orcs instead. Meanwhile, close combat between the Bulls of the Red Rovers versus the War Boys was actually entirely one-sided. Now, they do manage to inflict 2 wounds onto my Ogre Bulls. However, I managed to kill 7 Ogre Orcs altogether. 4 of them died from impact hits, and the other 3 died from close combat. So needless to say, my opponent loses this combat. He does have to take a break test, which he fails, and I decide to pursue forward with the Bulls. And I run them down, I run forward 8 inches and kill all the Orcs at the same time and end up on the other side of the battlefield into my enemy's deployment zone. Which is pretty cool because what my plan now to do is for my next turn is to do a reform real quick with my Ogres so that way they're facing the back ranks of the Immortulz, and that way I can charge my Bulls into the back of the Immortulz and then charge my Mournfang Cav into the right hand flank, and that way they're stuck fighting 3 sides at the same time. So that's pretty much the tactic I'm going with on that one. So over the combat between the Black Orcs as well as my, my Stenkum's Legion, once again, Brother Grim does declare a challenge with Grimgor Ironhide, and I do accept with my general. So because of that, Grimgor Ironhide as well as Taijin Khan, the Right Fist of Hell, they do engage in close combat. Unfortunately for me, though, I was not able to inflict a single wound onto Grimgor Ironhide. His armor save is really good, plus he has a 5 award save, so I was able to cause any wounds. He was able to put 2 on me, so that part kind of sucked, but, you know, at the same time, though, my general's not dead, so that's not too shabby. So the combat between the 2 characters are over with. We go directly to the rest of the combat between the 2 units. And as you see here, the combat is actually pretty deadly on both sides. First of all, I do manage to kill 3 Black Orcs with the impact hits generated from the Lead Belchers, so that part was kind of cool as well. Plus, they also managed to kill 2 more of those guys as well. Now, unfortunately for them, though, they actually suffered 7 wounds from the Black Orcs. I killed off 2 of my Powder Gangers and put a floating wound on the 3rd one. So, needless to say, I lost combat with my Lead Belchers there on the left-hand side, so that part was kind of sad. However, the combat between my Stenkum's Legion as well as the Immortulz was an absolute bloodbath, as you can see in the combat taking place from them. From the impact hits, I managed to kill 9 of them from impact hits alone, but as you can see there, though, I killed something like 22 Black Orcs when it was all said and done. Now, granted, I did take 12 wounds, so I do lose 3 Iron Guts. Sorry, not 12, 13 wounds. I lose 3 Iron Guts and have a floating wound on the last one, but needless to say, I won by a landslide. 22 versus 13, those are excellent odds. So because of that, my opponent does have to take a break test. And same thing with my, my Lead Belchers, they also had to take a break test too. So needless to say, my Lead Belchers, they failed their break test, so they run away, and luckily for me, my opponent can't chase after them because he is currently engaged with my Iron Gut unit. But as you can see, the Black Orcs do fail their panic test because they are forced to take a break test, and they flee back something like 7 inches, but I pursue 8. So because of that, my Iron Guts just run those guys down and chop them up to the last man, just slaughtering that entire unit in one go. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that pretty much nets me the victory on this battle. So as you can see, pretty much the entire table is cleared of orcs except for those 6 night goblins who are running away, and needless to say, I win this game. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's go directly to the after action report because this battle report is now officially over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for the after action report. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the after action report for the Golden Age Warhammer Fantasy Battle Report number 63, and it being a major victory for Commander CheapSkate. I ended up earning 2,272 victory points, while that opponent only earned 172 victory points. Now, Brother Grimm's losses, he lost Grimgore Ironhide, the Incarnate of Beasts, Ruga the Stunty Flare, Blowgurt the Face Smasher, the War Boys, the Backstabbers, as well as the Immortulz. In my area, I only lost my Powder Gangers. And once again, the Gut Star strikes fear into the hearts of my enemies once again. That's one of the coolest things about the Ogre Kingdom's army is the whole Gut Star build, where you put your Ogre Iron Guts into a column formation supported by your characters. Now, it is a double-edged sword because, just like my last battle report, these guys, I did lose that Gut Star, so they are absolutely destroyed, and that pretty much sealed my fate on that battle report. But at the same time, though, when it does work, it absolutely destroys everything inside of its path. Another big thing that really helped me out in this battle was Fulminating Flame Cage. That is one of my all-time favorite spells now, after watching that thing just decimate an entire unit of Orc Biggins. That part was pretty awesome. Originally, I was kind of doubtful about the effectiveness of the Lure of Fire, but after seeing that spell work, I am a believer, and I will always grab it every single chance that I get. Now, on the flip side, though, for my opponent, I think the reason why he lost his battle report is because his units were too big, and they were too point-heavy, in my opinion. He basically had 2 huge hordes where all of his characters were inside of, as well as all the killing power, and while they do have a lot of carrying power in those hordes, though, he didn't have enough support units, in my opinion. He didn't have any monsters or war machines, and if he had those, I think that would have really helped him out in this battle report, because the monsters could have tied up units, and the war machines could have definitely whittled down my guys, especially Doomdiver Catapult, since you don't get an armor save against those guys. However, this was a very fun game against an awesome opponent, and just like always, I can't wait for the rematch on that one. So that's going to do it for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest news about the hobby aspect of this channel. That's good to do for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.